So today we're going to be talking about Back to the Future. We are going to talk about the various uh, aspects and reviews and our thoughts on the overall movie, and then we're going to be talking about what would a movie from 1985 look like in 2016, it's going to be kind of an interesting topic. So we'll start with review and what you guys thought about it.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of a classic, honestly. Like, you can't really go wrong with Back to the Future. I really think that a lot of the ideas that they tried to express, it's really funny how it plays into, like, today's society, like how things match up and how things don't. I mean, what was it, last year, the year before?
2015.
They made it to 2015, and, I mean, it was just like the movie, right? Yeah.
It's funny because that movie is that trilogy as a whole. It's interesting to see what they got right, and what they, what, like, just a scary coincidence, like, even though the Cubs didn't win, they made it for the first time pretty much ever to the World
That
Series,
was so funny seeing that.
and I remember I got I had my newspaper as well as everyone else. I got the newspaper, shoot, you know what I'm talking about,
Chicago.
no, which newspaper was it from the movie? They put out a yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But anyway, they for the actual date, the October 21st, they put out a newspaper with, like, the front page was the youth goes to jail and the whole thing, and I actually picked up my copy, so it was really funny to see. They made up the whole, Jaws 19 on the inside. It was just it's fun looking back. But what were your thoughts? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, really, just a carry over what you're saying, but it's just amazing that even back in 1985, that there was even a mentality in place to think of what the future was going to look like. I mean, like, yeah, that was, like, always a part of your mindset. Like, I'm thinking of it today, like how the technological world is going to change. But you think of, like, 1985, what we think of as technology wasn't technology, back then. Like, now we think of it as, like the, cellular devices, computers, tablets, and everything kind of affiliated with that, but back then, their version of technology was what ours was then. It's just interesting to think that if you were to back it up another 20 years, 20, 30, 40 years, what the definition of technology would have been back then. Technology essentially in and out of itself is like the implementation of new innovative stuff, but again, our definition of it is this, so so it's just amazing that, and they were able to absorb a whole movie behind that, that idea.
I know the movie was a little, before our time, kind of, like, growing up, like, obviously we grew up watching it, but it's not like it came out when we were young, so, just hearing from my parents, like, I was always in love with that movie, just watching all the time when I was little, and really happy, because I think it really set a precedent for movies, and kind of showed people, like, what they actually could accomplish, and now, it's just come so far from then.
Right.
So,
just, it's like, what made that movie fun even at a young age for me was it just was like it was almost like an open, like the light at the end of the tunnel of, like, the cool, flashy, like gadgets and sweet stuff like that we knew was to come, like in 85, so or that was to come, not that we knew it was really going to happen, but so, and now we see it today, and if we had the technology that they used back in the film back then, it wouldn't be innovative at all,
Right.
It wouldn't be new at all, it wouldn't be cool at all, but, like, then it was like, whoa, this is what the next few years could look like.
Right. So now with the remake, or you know an updated version of it. It's interesting because now we talk about, you know, with the original movie he goes back 30 years. The whole idea is he goes back to 1955, and it's the idea of, you know, and then he jumps ahead 30 years, 40 years in the future for, you know, for when he goes to in number 2. So it's this idea now of, if we were to do a, you know, a remake today, he'd be going back to the time of the original movie, so like the 1985, you know, and so it would be interesting to see, instead of 1955, what 1985 looks like in, you know, because if you think about it, like back, you know, the original movie, 1955 was almost a parody of that time. So now what we see is like a parody of 1985, you know, like the stereotypical, you know, 1985 style, fashion, you know, it becomes an 80s period piece kind of thing. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts as far as like that's kind of what I think when I see a remake happening today.
See, I see it going 2 ways. I see it either being a direct remake, kind of like you've kind of seen more recently with some of the films, or it kind of splits off and does a thing kind of like Jurassic World did, or like Red Dawn, you know? Like, same kind of concept, but super updated versions. I mean, like with Red Dawn, I mean, they switched from Russian Scare to, wasn't it like with North Korea kind of thing?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, with Jurassic World, like, this whole huge multi-million-dollar corporation park thing.
Well, it was interesting because I remember the idea of Jurassic World was originally, and you bring up an interesting point of, with Jurassic World it was it was almost a what if story of what if the original park worked, you know, what if it hadn't gone haywire, what if, you know, Hammond's thoughts and ideas actually came to life and actually worked, and it brought in all these people, and so it'd be really cool to see kind of this idea of a continuation story of what if the DeLorean hadn't gotten destroyed, or what if Doc Brown was working on a second DeLorean and Marty's son finds it, you know, and it's this idea of he goes back to 1985 and you get to see, you know, a young Michael J. Fox, you know, and things like that, you know, with the technology we have, we can make Arnold Schwarzenegger young again for Terminator, then we can make, you know, Michael J. Fox young again. That's a really cool idea too.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be, but I'd lean into next is like casting. You know,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't watch enough movies or like know enough actors, actresses. You know, like and their roles and stuff to speak to this. But I would propose that what you just said is like go younger characters who would have been good actors, actresses back in like 1985 in that time period, but make them younger from what they were back then. You know. From the ages that they were back then, not necessarily like bringing them to when they are, you know, what they are now, and then like taking 15 years off their life, or, you know, 20, 30 years off their life now. But because I can't even if I could tell you like what movies or what, you know, shows they're in, I couldn't even tell you the actors or actresses that I think would fit the role really well. You know, we chatted a little bit about it, but I still can't think of anybody who.
I think playing off that idea of like Marty's son maybe finding it, or Marty and a friend maybe. I really like that idea of having the star from Teen Wolf, and just as like a kind of
posy,
just as like a. I mean, I don't know how he would do for the part. I mean, obviously it would take a lot more into that. I mean, more than I know about that kind of stuff. But I think to have that kind of connection between him and Michael J. Fox, that'd be really interesting.
Well, you play, I mean, and it's cool because he plays, you know, it would be that really cool connection that, you know, fans would go nuts over. But what would be, I could see him in the role because if you think of the original, Michael J. Fox was kind of this, like, if his dad was like super nerdy and like super like, you know, and then becomes hip and cool. Marty was the exact opposite. Marty was this cool guy, you know, the you know, he had a school bully, but, you know, bully also bullied everyone else. But it was interesting. It's an interesting thing because if you look at like him versus his siblings, he's like the super cool one. He's the young, hip, 1985, antithesis of a teenager in 1985. So to see a teenager in 2016 played by, as you're saying, Tyler Posey, it'd be that cool little connection. But I could also see him playing the role of like a child of Michael J. Fox,
Yeah.
And that would be cool because it's funny because if you look at 2 as well, Back to the Future 2, Michael J. Fox almost becomes his father.
Yeah.
He becomes this kind of businessman, like, not
I also think, like, there's obviously a lot of things people have picked apart from the old movies,
Mm-hmm.
and, we kind of chatted about it, but, like, you're right. Like, I don't think Doc could be this super old guy that just stumbles upon hanging out with some high school kid.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would really have to change kind of, like, in a different aspect, like,
Yeah.
just as the times have changed, like, that's something that's really been picked at, and I think if you could kind of get around that situation and somehow create either a new format, like with like you talked about earlier, like maybe one of his friends goes with him, or something along the lines of maybe like a teacher.
Right.
Like that would be kind of cool to see. Like, so there's actually at least not just some random old guy that takes him under his wing.
Either this professor or like, I'd venture to say if it was a continuation, kind of like the son or the children of Doc Brown, or something like something like that, where you get this idea of a Doc Brown figure in the form of somebody else.
Kind of just came up with this real quick. Well, what would be like a cool idea? I think is like maybe these kids are in college.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe these kids are like home for the summer or something and stumble across a DeLorean, like just rooting through some of their dad's old stuff or something like that, and come across something like that. I mean, maybe kind of segue into it that way. It'd be easier to bring in like
you could bring in the legacy.
Maybe. I mean, kind of continuation of the story, like kind of go past the whole high school aspect and try to seek into a new venue and just a thought. I mean,
because it's this idea of, you got to remember, like in 3 the DeLorean gets destroyed. So if it was a continuation, it'd be this idea of like, well, he continues the legacy with the train and the flying train, but what if he tried another DeLorean? Or what if he tried an updated car? If we took like, so if 1985 the pinnacle of like the time machine was this DeLorean, well, now we have the Tesla, we have we have all of these cars that that look futuristic.
right.
So what if he continued that technology, the flux capacitor, into another vehicle? It would be cool to keep the DeLorean, but.
And if also, you could look at it like if it was just a pure remake too, like you're saying.
What kind of car?
What kind of car would it be? That'd be really cool up for discussion.
I think it would be a Tesla. I honestly, if you think of like, so if you have DeLorean, it looks very futuristic. If you look at any Tesla now, it looks very futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you slap a flux capacitor in there. What is it? Mr. No, I'm not saying Mr. Coffee. That's wrong. But it's something along that line, like the energy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It would be really fun to play with, and plus you have the idea now of playing with the idea of what if the 2015 that they predicted back then came true.
Yeah.
Flying cars, hoverboards, things like that.
There'd have to be a hoverboard.
You'd get this fun idea of like kids are, flying around on hoverboards, things like that. And the 2015 that they predicted back then now becomes a reality, which is really darn close.
Just a lot like the stuff that they bring into like the Hunger Games, and some of the things that like from behind the scenes, when they're or preparing for the actual games in the first part, would be kind of neat to see that in the first clip. So
yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be a fun movie because you get Tyler Posey as the lead actor. who else?
I mean, I feel like for the professor, it'd have to be some. I mean, honestly, he could probably be as old as Doc was in the movie. But if it was in a different setting, it wouldn't be as weird, you know? Like, if he was actually a teacher,
Yeah.
or if he... I mean, in a sense, like, you could have this old, distinguished-looking figure, like, that could kind of guide him through this, or, like, tell him about it. But maybe, like, he stumbles upon this all by himself,
Yeah.
you know? Like, he tries to do his thing on it and whatnot. Because, I mean... You could almost say, like, at that point, like, if it was a continuation of the movie from 1985 to 2015, maybe that's, like, partially a thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's, like, what people are working on, and nobody really knew that it had already happened, you know?
That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be kind of cool, too. So, like, there's, like, all these people talking about these breakthroughs, and, you know, Marty McFly sitting back, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Like, but he can't say. I mean, he can't say anything.
Right.
So
you bring in Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd play cameos of like, I've been there, done that.
Sure.
You know, that whole thing. It'd be interesting to see, like the son of Doc Brown. Like I kind of mentioned it, like the son, one of the sons. So you had Jules and Vern, and. To get like one of that became a professor, and he's like, my dad was working on something, you know.
Yeah.
And you get this idea like he was building another DeLorean, another time machine, you know.
Yeah.
And it becomes this kind of I don't want to say Bill and Ted style adventure, like two young guys, time traveling, whatever, but it almost become that.
Yeah.
And I think it was funny because that's what set Back to the Future apart was you had what we now know as like Rick and Morty. Was a direct like idea of that real. Same the creators have already said they stylized the characters off of what if Doc was a drunk, and what if it was, what would it be like if it was a grandson, who is Doc to, so what if it was this kind of, it would almost become this almost Bill and Ted adventure where it was like you have these two young college students, or these this perfect older kind of youngish professor in his his mid-30s, traveling with his 20-year-old kid,
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. It'd be a cool dynamic to see.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys have just gone on a whole tangent of different options that could be placed in it.
There's so many options with this.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's gather some final thoughts. More than anything, character roles. I think I really think that. Because this is going to be modern, pushing towards the future, we've seen in culture, and in the modern day, that there's been a constant push for focusing on females having not only big roles in movies but leading roles. I see that happening in a new clip. But how about specifics? Like, what do you guys think on specific characters that would be filled into a new movie?
I mean, honestly, if we're sticking with the kind of, so let's say they're college students, going with the professor. Maybe it could almost do it like Ferris Bueller-esque, with the super cruel girlfriend, that always goes with and joins in the adventure. And I mean, you could kind of like play into a bunch of movies from those times and kind of just recapture that whole feeling, because all of those movies, like right around that time, like I mean, like Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller, they all had like this feel to them, and they were just good movies that you could sit down and watch, and you didn't need to have any context to it. It was just a good feel-good movie. If you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. What do you?
Yeah, I like that idea of like this idea of so you have it almost what you're describing is almost the idea of a it's weird. It's going to center on, so if we center on McFly family, we have his girlfriend, and then we have the professor. Like you say, it becomes almost this John Hughes style. I like that idea of like a John Hughes style. It almost becomes like instead of who did it, Robert Zemeckis movie, it becomes the feel of just like an 80s movie, but set in 2016, and they go back to 1985. So you have the idea to play around with John Hughes.
Not only would you appeal to like a whole, new audience, obviously, but you'd play to so many
our parents who were there.
Parents and their parents' parents who went and took them to see those movies, and
because if the original movie was for the grandparents and or what it would be our grandparents and our parents, it would now be for our parents and us. Like that it kind of binds those two. You know, what would it be like? I mean, I know the original idea of the film was, what would it be like to go back and visit our parents?
That's true.
You know, so what would it be like for Tyler Posey to go back and visit his dad?
Yeah.
And what we get this is a really cool idea of around the time of 1985, you saw Marty going back to the future. So we tie in, then we tie in him going to 1955, and it's this idea of really tying into the first movie, and then you can even go into the future, because he goes from 1985 to 2015. So it's this really cool idea of where does the time machine take us in regards to where Marty was in 1985. And if we play with the idea of, even his dad going, knowing about the future, knowing about time travel, he goes, I like that girl. Yeah. You marry that girl, like things like that. And it really, it'd be really cool. So you get a strong female lead. Okay. Who would you get to play? Who would you get to play?
Who did you mention at first?
Well, I feel like maybe an Emma Watson kind of role. I mean, I feel like with female leads, like, not only, you can kind of have people come out of the woodworks too, honestly. Like, there's been a few movies that have done that, even more recently. Like, I know she had been in more films before, but the Shailene Woodley. To me, I feel like she wasn't a mega star until she hit the Divergent series. Became that huge young female protagonist. Yeah. So I know she was in a few films before that, but those was kind of like their blossoming roles, so to speak. So that'd almost be kind of interesting too, to see like what Hollywood comes up with next for the next big.
Yeah. So you put somebody like, because I know before Back to the Future, you had Michael J. Fox, who was known for TV shows, and they put him in as an actor, and he had already done Teen Wolf, he had already done Teen Wolf, I think, and so he was already kind of known, but then he was still that kind of unknown. So you get Tyler Posey, who's unknown but known, and so now you have this actress that would be perfect, and we may not know that, we don't know yet who would be a perfect female character. As for the doc, the professor, I have no idea. Like, there's so many who would be like.
What about
in the mid-30s, like that kind of.
I think. I was thinking like Robert Duvall, even if you're a little too old. I think that'd be. That'd be awesome.
Take a guy in his 70s.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall would be awesome. I don't know. It's this idea of like we don't know, because you have to get like it's this perfect ensemble cast that is such like a unique team of people.
Who would direct it? I think that kind of would play into it too, because you wouldn't want an actor not filling their role. Would it become a summer blockbuster? It would have to be. You'd think.
Yeah,
but you'd think it'd have to be. Kind of like Jurassic World was.
Yeah, but I don't think it would be on such a grand scale.
Okay, I can see that.
Because the original movie was not on such a grand scale. It was kind of this. It was just kind of this movie that yes, it was a blockbuster, but it was a summer movie. But at the same time, it was also this movie that you have what's the word I'm looking for? Shoot. You have this movie that is kind of, it feels smaller than it actually is.
It's a niche kind of.
It's not even a niche. It's like a it became this grand epic, but in all reality, a guy goes back to the past, and most of the movie takes place in 1955. On these sets.
Period.
So it becomes this period piece. Okay. So it's this weird thing of it would be, because if we're playing around with going back and forth between times, it would become this interesting time of you'd have to make it a little bit grander scale because he's going back to the past and then he's going back to the future, and the future would be a little bit bigger, more green screen. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I think I'm personally a fan of like J.J. Abrams. I think he perfectly gets like that look and feel movies when he does things. So if he does he did Super 8, which felt like a movie from the 70s.
That's true. Yeah, I think that would be a good option for sure.
It's such a weird, it's such a hard question to ask.
Yeah.
Who can capture the look and feel of James Gunn?
Not familiar. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it.
Did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay. Okay.
And he did he has the idea of like 70s. Like he knows the 70s and 80s. So what if he did a movie about the 70s, like
with
the 80s?
Zemeckis as producer.
Zemeckis comes in as producer, and you get similar writers or same writers to write the new one. Oh, that'd be cool. I could totally picture that too.
We can only hope, right?
Right? So, yeah, I mean, is there any kind of final thoughts you guys have?
No, I have a whole lot. No, not really.
Okay.
We touched base on pretty much
Everything?
everything.
Okay. Cool. All right, well, that's all we got, so thank you.